Joining me in the studio now, former Met Police Detective Peter Blexley. Good to see you, Peter. And down the line, we're joined by former head teacher Sue Atkins and the head teacher at Passmore Academy in Harlow, Vic Goddard. Thank you all for joining me. Why don't we start with Vic, because he's still at the helm and he's still at the coal face of education, and he's doing a fabulous job of it. But Vic, are you noticing, or have you noticed over your career, a sort of heightening in violent incidents and a general worsening in pupil behaviour?
I think the last couple of years, there's certainly been a quicker to anger. I think it's probably the most apt, even old-fashioned phrase that communication, being able to barter through conversations has gone. And I think, that could be because we've got a much more populist sort of society at the moment, but certainly it feels like we go from 0 to 100 a lot quicker. And I'll be honest, I spoke to quite a few colleagues yesterday, obviously after the hideous attack in Wales, and there were quite a few of us who said that, that wouldn't surprise me if we're not, having more of those sorts of concerns in the future.
And you put it down to being confined during the pandemic, or lack of social contact, frustration, or what is going on as far as you can see?
There's a great piece of research in America about, does anger drive populism, or does populism drive anger? And I think, we've got ruling classes who think that it's okay to say things that are outrageous to each other in public, point fingers, the Angela Rayner and all those sorts of things that have happened over the last few weeks, where it just seems that point scoring and winning has become so important, and we've had instances, and I know of instances where children have fallen out in school, which happens, and one parent's gone around and assaulted the other parent for because their children have fallen out. I'm afraid that quicker to anger, the shorter fuse, has come around, I think, partly because of anger and sadness from the pandemic, but I think also a rise in the role models we have in our society.
And I mean, I think it's charming to think of the children at your school carefully modelling their behaviour on Angela Rayner's, but I doubt they'd even know who she was if you asked me. It's a very fond and romantic notion you have of the children you teach, Vic, and I commend you for it. But if you said, tell me something, Sonny Jim, did you do that to so-and-so over there, Smith Minor, because of what you saw Angela Rayner doing when she lifted her finger and called the Tories scum? I bet they'd say, who is Angela Rayner? What are the Tories? And maybe even what is scum? But let me ask you, though, Vic, what are you doing about it, if anything? What can you do to contain it?
I mean, relationships always come at the heart of any good school and any good organisation. So it's about trying to make these young people understand that despite whatever's going on in the world around them and outside them, that how they treat each other and how we treat each other matters and can make a difference. And it's a constant. We have things in education I call plate spinners, things we just constantly got to go back to over and over and over again. And that's one, that relationships matter.
Let me bring Sue Atkins into this. Sue, former head teacher yourself. Very sad and also very worrying to hear of incidents like the one in West Wales, and also to hear Vic saying rather ruefully, he wasn't all that surprised and wouldn't be astounded to see something as ghastly as that in his own school. I mean, really pretty horrible, isn't it, to contemplate? So what do you think has happened? What's gone wrong, if you feel things have got worse?
Yes, it's never easy, is it? It's never simple. Life is complex. I think there is a combination of mental health overlap from the pandemic. Kids that were isolated on smartphones, on devices, isolated, depressed, with anxiety, not learning self-regulation, not learning negotiation skills, not kind of communicating effectively. So it's feeding into it, and you could see that this was sort of storing itself up. And I think it was the Royal College of Psychiatrists said that there'd been a 53% rise in the mental health of young people since the pandemic in the last 4 years. So as you say, it's about connection, communication, learning to self-regulate, learning to respect each other, talking to each other in a respectful manner. So it's complicated. And of course, the budget cuts have not helped, where there are, CAMS is just heaving with lists of kids that aren't getting the help that they deserve.
Let me bring Peter into all of this. Obviously, very occasionally, or maybe not occasionally enough, these things become a police matter.
Yes, unfortunately they do. But let me add my little bit of stats into the mix. As a teenager, you are now twice as likely to be stabbed than you were a decade ago. If, as a teenager, you arm yourself with a knife, you are twice as likely to become a victim of knife crime yourself, rather than protecting yourself. I agree a lot with what the educationists have said in terms of communication, particularly. Very difficult to learn communication skills when a teenager has their head buried into a mobile phone. But on a broader thing, we live in a less deferential society. We have less discipline in society, in homes, in schools, and particularly on the streets. And until those big issue matters get tackled, predominantly, from my perspective, by law enforcement doing their bit, then I fear things are only going to get worse and not better.
Yeah, Vic, what can you do to instill discipline? And are you in a close relationship with the police in your area? Is there, I mean, do all the kids in your school know a particular local policeman? I remember my girls did. There was a particular PC who would come to the school and give talks and lectures, and then when they saw him around the neighbourhood, and I didn't grow up in Dixon of Dock Green, and neither did they, it wasn't that long ago, they'd say, hello, PC Plod, or whatever his name was, and everybody knew him, and you certainly knew better watch your P's and Q's if he was around the place as well. It wasn't all, you know, sweetness and light either. It was all quite, you know, quite serious stuff. Yeah. Have you got that going on with your school and your pupils?
You know, it's all about balance with young people. You know, we have rules, we do suspensions, we put kids in detentions. It's about us having a consistent approach so they understand, you know, the consequences of certain actions. And, you know, we do what we can to keep that alive. But they're in school 18.5% of their childhood. They're outside in society and with their families over 80% of them. So we do a part of the job. We do a part where he goes, if you are able to exist in this environment, these are the rewards, these are the good things you get, and try to make sure that that sort of behaviourist approach works, you know, like training a puppy. However, once a young person has become dysregulated, once a young person is sort of full already, you have to do things differently, and that often involves a therapeutic approach, an approach of understanding. And, you know, we haven't got necessarily the people to signpost those young people to anymore. So quite a lot falls back on the school, which we're not necessarily the best place for, but if not us, then who? And that's sort of how it's felt with young people, because the support we need to support them is so hard to find.
Really appreciate it. Appreciate the honesty in particular. Thank you all very much indeed for joining me.